Good evening, everyone. We're Group 2. The company we analyze is PepsiCo Incorporated. PepsiCo Incorporated is one of the world's leading food and beverage companies, which provides products in more than 200 countries with up to 22 global brands. The CEO of the company is Raymond. He has worked in PepsiCo for 23 years, so he knows more about the company's position in the market and can lead the company towards accelerated growth and get closer to the company's mission and vision. For Raymond's compensation, nearly half of his compensation is from Pepsi's shares. Distribute shares to top management can discipline their behaviors and reduce the agency problems. For board members, 12 of 13 of them are independent directors. Independent directors are directors who have no business relationship with the company, so they can monitor the performance done by top management and perform in a way to maximize shareholders' interests, which can ultimately reduce the agency problems and increase firm value. 23% of them are female directors. Gender diversity helps generating different opinions in decision making, and female directors are more ethical, thoughtful, responsible, and equipped with distinctive skills. The average board membership is 0.75, which is higher than the industry average, which means the board directors in PepsiCo have more experience on how to serve as directors. These board characteristics help PepsiCo process an outstanding corporate governance among others and make it becomes one of the largest food and beverage.
Okay, when it comes to capital structure of PepsiCo, we collect the recent data from Bloomberg and historical annual report to analyze whether PepsiCo can afford financing activities and why they made existing financing strategies, which were to pay more on dividends and repurchasing shares. And we also use these figures to evaluate the optimal capital structure to compare with current data, and we hope to know whether the current capital structure has the risk of excessive debt. Firstly, the equity. We looked at the free cash flow to observe their ability to afford dividends, and from these two figures, PepsiCo did afford the annual dividend payment but dropped in these 2 years, and Coca-Cola performed better in this term. That means PepsiCo may use more debt to execute their financial activities. Then the debt introduced the interest coverage ratio, which is also associated with the bond rating. And if the ratio is larger than 1, that is to say the company is able to afford the interest payment. And from this graph, we can see that the ratio has decreased in recent years, but not significant compared to Coca-Cola. And then let's move on to the critical step, which is to calculate WACC, cost of capital. And we use the object data like risk-free rate and beta and premium. And finally, we got the result of cost of capital, which is 6.04%. And compared with 28.91% return of capital, we believe that current financial strategies are in good condition. And next, we use the existing data to find the optimal debt ratio, which is 20% from the table. And this is higher than the current ratio. And the bond rating is AAA. Further, we can use this figure to calculate the firm value and stock price under the optimal debt ratio. And finally find that it can only bring $4.95 increase to the share price. Lastly, we use two regression to find the optimal debt ratio. One is cross-sectional regression and another is market regression. and the result of the ratio is very close to the current figure. So, in a word, we can see that PepsiCo can have a right financing mix, and this is also the reason why they would like to invest more on dividends.
Acquisition of SodaStream. So why PepsiCo choose SodaStream? The first reason is SodaStream is the largest manufacturer of sparkling water makers in the world, and a major pioneer of the household sparkling water makers market. The second reason is the completion of SodaStream's acquisition will complement and optimize its water business. The third reason is the products of SodaStream aim to promote health and wellness of customers and create a drinking habit, being more environmentally friendly and cost-effective, which means Pepsi's goal to transform into healthy direction through innovation and acquisition over the years. And what benefits springs from this acquisition? The first one is the tax benefit. There is a 157% of growth in the net income. The increment in net income was mainly from the tax benefit, which was due to the acquisition of SodaStream. The second one is the price and profit. With consideration of $3.3 billion, the P/E ratio is roughly at 130 times, which may seem high, but given the fast-growing potential, the price is justifiable. And what about the effect to cash flow? In 2018, the operating cash flows was healthy and amounting at $9.4 billion, slightly decreased from previous year at $10 billion. However, the acquisition of SodaStream still affect the cash flow in first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter in 2019. From the long-term perspective, carbonated drinks has met its periods of stagnation, as people now are more emphasizing a healthier diet habit. Homemade soda drink may be a next growing engine of the market. Furthermore, PepsiCo's idea was supported by the capital market, where the stock price of PepsiCo rose to 136.
Next, we are going to talk about the valuation of PepsiCo, which include the dividend policy, stock price valuation using DDM model, and the analysis of its cash flows. According to PepsiCo's annual report in 2018, the company started to pay quarterly cash dividends since 1965, and it has increased the dividend payment for the 46th consecutive year with an annual average growth rate of 8%. The board of directors is in charge of the dividend policy of PepsiCo. During the past 2 years, from 2017 to 2018, we could see that the free cash flows had a 4% of increase in the free cash flow. The dividend to free cash flows in the past 2 years were 61.02% and 64.8% respectively. To assess whether the dividend policy is appropriate, we need to look at the company's return on investment and the comparison of stock of return on equity with peers. Since the annual report of 2019 is still not available, we could only know the investment return performance up to 2018. The table below shows that the return on invested capital during the period of 2016 to 2018 and the ROIC was 15.2%, 11%, and 27.7% respectively. Moreover, looking at the free cash flows to equity, it measures how much cash that returns to equity shareholder of a company. It can be seen that in 2016 and 2017, the free cash flow to equity was 11,467 million and 92,191 million, respectively, which fully cover the spend on buying back shares and paying dividends. While in the past 2 years, there was a dramatic decrease in the free cash flow to equity. Coca-Cola has a similar changes in the free cash flow to equity, while the dividend payout ratio of PepsiCo is lower than Coca-Cola in any given time. In terms of return on equity of PepsiCo and its rival Coca-Cola, we could see from the table below that actually PepsiCo company has higher returns on equity during the period from 2015 to 2019. The return on equity ratio measures the ability of the company to generate profits using shareholders' money. Therefore, PepsiCo outcompetes the Coca-Cola in return on the shareholders' investment, means that it has a stronger ability to use shareholders' funds. Therefore, although the dividend to free cash flow ratio of PepsiCo is lower than that of Coca-Cola, the return on equity ratio of PepsiCo shows that the company is treating the shareholders' money responsibly. Since PepsiCo has a regular dividend payment tradition, it will be intuitive to evaluate its stock price using dividend discount model (DDM), which assumes that the present stock price should be the sum of all the future dividend payments of the stock when discounted back to the present value. However, it is impossible for the dividend growth rate to be stable forever, so that we adopt the two-stage growth model that assumes two dividends growth rates in two stages. Firstly, the table below shows the dividend payment from 2010 to 2019 and gives the average and the median growth rate of the dividend payment. Median of growth rate, which is 2.24%, is more suitable to represent the growth rate of dividend payments because it eliminates the extreme number effect. As we can see that in some years the dividend growth rate could reach to more than 10%. The discount rate was calculated using Kaplan model. As shown in table, we use the 10-year Treasury bill rates as the risk-free rate, which is 2.18%, and we assume that annual market return on Nasdaq is expected to be 11.8%, which is the 10 years average rate of return. The beta of PepsiCo is 0.57. As a result, the expected rate of return using Kaplan model is 7.66%. Thirdly, after we obtain the discount rate for PepsiCo, then we could discount the future dividend cash flows to get the present value of the stock price. As a result, the estimated stock price using dividend payment model is 125.14 per share. However, the current share price of PepsiCo is around $133.5, which is highly overvalued. Lastly, if we look at the PE ratio, price to equity of the US beverage industry from Bloomberg database, the average of PE ratio is 30.02, which is higher than the PE ratio of PepsiCo. The PE ratio measures the company's current share price to its earnings per share. The higher the ratio, it implies that the share is overvalued. In fact, PE ratio of PepsiCo's biggest competitor Coca-Cola is.
In previous chart, we formed the angles of dividend and P/E ratio to analyze PepsiCo. Free cash flow is one of the most important indicators related to stock price. Here, we use it to have an in-depth insight into the company's financial health, and then we would use the discounted cash flow model to calculate another intrinsic stock price. First, the FCFF, free cash flow to firm, measures the company's profitability after all expenses and reinvestments. The higher the FCFF is, the more the cash remains after all expenses. From 2016 to current, the FCFF of PepsiCo is reduced by 80%, which implies that PepsiCo was not as good year by year, and at the same time the number of Coca-Colas increased by 27%. And in the last 4 years, the FCFE of Coca-Cola was relatively steady than PepsiCo. Therefore, both the absolute number and percentage of FCFF and FCFE show the Coca-Cola better performance than PepsiCo. The procedure of discounted cash flow
model is shown in this slide. The estimated stock price of PepsiCo is about $83, while the number of Coca-Cola is about $23. Both of them are much lower than their current stock price, so these two companies are all overvalued. Look at another ratio, price to free cash flow. It was calculated by dividing its market capitalizations by free cash flow. A low value of it indicates that the company is undervalued, and a high value of it indicates that the company is overvalued. In the last 12 months, the value of PepsiCo is about 21.45, which are higher than the average of these sectors. It implies that the stock price is overvalued now. So that's all. Thank you.